The neon lights of the Silverstone circuit buzzed overhead, casting long, eerie shadows across the damp asphalt. It was 3 a.m., and the rest of the pit lane was pitch black and dead silent, except for Garage 7. Leo Vance, a rookie Formula One driver known for his nerves of steel, stood staring at his machine. The car didn't look like his usual carbon fiber beauty. It seemed darker, almost absorbing the ambient light around it. His race engineer, Marcus, had gone home an hour ago, yet the telemetry screens inside the garage were glowing with frantic, erratic data lines. "System check," Leo whispered, his voice echoing in the vast, empty hangar. The steering wheel display flickered to life, not with the standard team logo, but with a single, chilling word: drive. Leo frowned, a knot tightening in his stomach. He hadn't scheduled a midnight test, and the team principal, Mr. Sterling, explicitly banned night runs after the incident last season. But an irresistible, morbid curiosity pulled at him. He slipped into the cramped cockpit, strapped himself tightly into the 6-point harness, and lowered his visor. As he pressed the ignition, the engine didn't roar, it shrieked, a sound more akin to a tortured animal than a 1,000-horsepower hybrid power unit. The dashboard lit up in brilliant, blinding crimson. Before he could process the anomaly, the pit lane shutter doors began to groan and slowly roll upward on their own, revealing a foggy, deserted track stretching out into the abyss. Leo gripped the wheel, his heart hammering against his ribs, and pushed the throttle forward. The car surged into the dark. The car accelerated with a terrifying, unnatural velocity. Down the Wellington Straight, the digital speedometer climbed past numbers Leo's car had never touched: 320, 350, 380 kilometers per hour. Yet the wind noise outside was completely muted, replaced by a low, rhythmic whispering that seemed to emanate from inside his helmet. Through the thick fog ahead, a pair of crimson taillights suddenly appeared out of nowhere. It was another F1 car, old-fashioned in its aerodynamic profile, weaving smoothly through Copse Corner without lifting. Leo's competitive instincts overrode his rising panic. He chased the phantom car, his tires gripping a track that felt slick yet impossibly responsive. "Who is that?" Leo spoke into his dead radio, knowing nobody was listening. As he pulled alongside the mysterious vehicle through Maggots and Beckett's, he glanced into the cockpit of the rival machine. The blood drained from his face. The driver was wearing a vintage 1970s helmet, but beneath the visor, there was no face, only a swirling, hollow void of absolute darkness. The phantom car suddenly swerved hard toward Leo's sidepod, trying to force him off the track into the concrete barrier. Leo wrenched the wheel in defense, his tires squealing in protest. When he looked back across, the rival car had vanished into thin air, leaving behind a lingering scent of burnt rubber and ancient dust. Shaken to his core, Leo checked his steering wheel display. The lap time tracker was flashing an impossible time: 0 minutes 0 seconds and 0 milliseconds. He was racing against time itself, and the clock was running out. Heart pounding against his ribs, Leo threw the car into Stowe Corner, fighting the heavy steering wheel as the G-forces pressed him deep into his carbon seat. The fog outside was thickening into a choking, gray soup, completely swallowing the grandstands and barrier lights. Suddenly, the static-filled silence of his radio snapped. A harsh, metallic voice crackled through his earpieces, a voice that sounded distorted, as if spoken underwater. "Turn back, Leo. You aren't meant to finish this lap." Leo slammed his foot harder on the throttle, adrenaline overriding his common sense. "Who is this? Identify yourself," he shouted into his headset, his voice tight with tension. There was no answer, only a low, mocking laugh that sounded like gears grinding together. Simultaneously, every single digital gauge on his steering wheel went haywire. Oil pressure dropped to 0. Tire temperatures spiked to a glowing red on the display, though the physical tires felt ice cold. Out of the mist ahead, the iconic shape of Club Corner loomed. But something was horribly wrong. The track ahead didn't lead back to the pit lane. It dropped off into a vast, bottomless chasm of pitch-black nothingness. Leo slammed on the carbon ceramic brakes with all his might. The anti-lock system failed instantly. The car locked its wheels, sending up a massive cloud of smoke, but momentum dragged him relentlessly toward the edge. With only meters to spare, Leo yanked the steering wheel hard to the left, spinning wildly across the runoff area. The car came to a violent halt inches from the abyss, stalling out with a final, dying shudder. Silence reclaimed the circuit. Leo sat in the dark cockpit for a long moment, his chest heaving as he tried to regulate his ragged breathing. The engine was dead, the glowing red dashboard had faded to a dull gray, and the terrifying chasm ahead had vanished, replaced once more by the ordinary asphalt of the home straight. "Get a grip," he muttered to himself, unbuckling his belts with shaking fingers. He popped the steering wheel off, tossed it onto the floor, and climbed out of the low-slung chassis. He expected to find the track marshals or a frantic security guard waiting for him. Instead, the pit lane was completely empty, bathed in the eerie, yellow glow of overhead sodium lamps. He walked toward the entrance of Garage 7, intending to grab his gym bag and leave this cursed place forever. He reached out and grabbed the metal handle of the side access door. It wouldn't budge. He pulled harder, rattling the heavy steel frame. It was locked from the outside. Frowning in confusion, Leo pressed his face against the small wired glass window of the door to peer inside. What he saw made his blood run cold. There, sitting parked neatly in the center of the dark garage, was his exact F1 car, dusty, covered in cobwebs, and with a shattered front wing. Leo stumbled backward, tripping over his own racing boots. He looked down at his racing suit, which was clean, pressed, and smelled faintly of lavender. He touched his face. His skin was ice cold, and his fingers trembled uncontrollably. If his car was locked inside the garage, covered in dust, what had he just been driving for the last 30 minutes? Desperate for answers, Leo sprinted down the silent, echoing pit lane toward the team's historical archive room. The electronic keycard scanner beside the door flickered, miraculously recognizing his driver credentials with a green flash. The heavy door hissed open. Inside, the room was lined with towering shelves filled with old race programs, VHS tapes, and championship binders. Leo flicked on the harsh overhead fluorescent lights and began frantically pulling books off the shelves, searching the records for any mention of Garage 7 or mysterious night incidents. In the back corner, tucked behind a stack of unused tires, he found a heavy, leather-bound scrapbook labeled 1974 Season Archive. He opened the brittle pages, dust rising into the air. Photos of classic racing legends stared back at him until he reached a page dedicated to a promising young British rookie named Julian Vance, his own grandfather, who had vanished under mysterious circumstances 50 years ago to the day. Leo's eyes scanned the yellowed newspaper clipping pasted onto the page. Rookie driver disappears during secret midnight test at Silverstone. Car found abandoned at Club Corner. Driver never seen again. Beneath the article, a photograph showed Julian standing beside his racing car. The car bore the exact same aerodynamic quirks and custom decals as the dark machine Leo had just driven. A chilling realization washed over him. The voice on the radio, the phantom rival on the track, it wasn't a hallucination. It was a generational trap, and he had just driven right into it. Before Leo could process the horrific implications of the scrapbook, the heavy archive door slammed shut behind him with a deafening bang. He whipped around, dropping the leather-bound book onto the concrete floor. He rushed to the door and slammed his fists against the wood, turning the brass handle. It was bolted tight. The electronic card reader outside flashed a mocking, continuous crimson light. "Open the door," Leo yelled, rattling the handle until his palms stung. The room's temperature plummeted instantly. His breath plumed into white clouds in the freezing air. The overhead fluorescent lights began to flicker erratically, buzzing like angry hornets before exploding one by one in a shower of tiny sparks, plunging the archive room into absolute darkness. In the pitch black, A soft, mechanical sound echoed from the far corner of the room, the distinct clicking of a vintage film projector coming to life. A white beam of light cut through the darkness, projecting onto the bare brick wall opposite him. Leo turned slowly, paralyzed by fear. Projected on the wall was moving black and white footage of Silverstone from 1974. He watched in horror as the grainy image showed his grandfather, Julian, stepping out of an identical racing car, looking directly into the camera lens with a face twisted in silent agony. Then, the projector image shifted, showing Leo's own face in the cockpit from earlier that night, captured from an angle where no cameras existed. The projection flickered out, leaving the archive room in suffocating darkness once more. A heavy, suffocating weight pressed down on Leo's chest, making it difficult to draw a breath. Without warning, the floor beneath his boots dissolved. Leo didn't fall. Rather, the room around him transformed, melting away like wax in a furnace. When his vision cleared, he wasn't in the archive room anymore. He was strapped tightly into the cockpit of the dark F1 car once again, sitting motionless on the starting grid of the Silverstone circuit. The sky above was an unnatural, bruised purple, devoid of stars or moon. All around him, other racing cars sat idling on the grid, their engines roaring with a demonic, synchronized pulse. He looked to his left. The driver in the adjacent car turned his helmet toward him. The visor slowly lifted to reveal the hollow, dark void he had seen earlier, and beneath it, the unmistakable facial structure of his grandfather, Julian. "Welcome to the permanent grid, grandson," a raspy voice echoed inside Leo's mind. "The race never ends here." Red lights flashed in sequence above the start-finish straight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The lights went out. Leo's hands moved on the steering wheel entirely against his will, his feet slamming down on the accelerator as his car launched forward into the eternal, inescapable twilight of the Phantom racetrack, forever trapped in the ultimate speed-fueled nightmare. Back in the real world, the sun began to peek over the horizon, painting the morning sky in gentle shades of orange and pink. The Silverstone pit lane bustled back to life as mechanics in bright team uniforms pushed tool carts, brewed fresh coffee, and prepared for the upcoming Grand Prix weekend. Team principal Mr. Sterling walked down the line, clipboard in hand, stopping outside Garage 7. He frowned, noticing the side access door was slightly ajar. He pushed the door open and stepped inside. The garage was pristine, orderly, and completely empty, save for Leo Vance's official race car parked neatly in the center bay, prepped and ready for the first practice session. Marcus, the lead race engineer, walked up behind Sterling, holding a stack of overnight telemetry logs. "Morning, boss. Car's ready to go. Telemetry shows the battery was mysteriously active all night, but the diagnostic system reports 0 errors." Sterling nodded slowly, his eyes lingering on the driver's seat of Leo's car. Resting neatly on the carbon fiber headrest was a single, old-fashioned racing glove made of worn, cracked leather from the 1970s, an item that definitely hadn't been there the night before. "Where is Leo?" Sterling asked, a sudden unease creeping into his voice. Marcus checked his digital tablet, furrowing his brow. "That's strange. His phone and wallet are sitting on his locker bench, but nobody has seen him since yesterday evening. Security logs show he never left the facility." Sterling stared at the empty car, a cold breeze sweeping through the open garage door, carrying the faint, distant sound of screaming engines fading into the morning mist.